and I apologize profusely for my lack of technical prowess today. Let me just grab my notes here. So it's Friday, May 6th. It's 10:16, a little bit late, and looking forward to having this public clemency board meeting. Before we begin, I just want to make a reminder about housekeeping rules. First, make sure your microphones are muted when you're not speaking. And then if you have any questions, please hold them. We'll have a period for questions. However, feel free to take advantage of the chat function to send questions in, and we'll be happy to address them during the question and answer portion of the meeting. I'd also like to take attendance of board members present so we can make sure we have a quorum. I'll call names of board members. Please let me know if you are here. Felisa Carter.
Here.
I believe Andrew Foyce is not here. Andy? Nope, I don't see him either. Emily Gunston.
Here.
Antonio Nunez.
Here.
Katya Semyonova.
Here.
Alana Suttenberg.
Here.
And Reverend Sam Whitaker.
I also want to point out that Sonia Weil is here as well. We're happy to have her back. So we have Sonia Weil and Antonio Nunez from Chairman Allen's office.
Thanks very much for mentioning that. Welcome back, Sonia. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have a quorum, so we can proceed. So first is old business, which was the old business was to address comments from board members on internal procedures. No comments were sent to the staff director from board members who did not meet in any committee, at least the board members who didn't meet in committee, with respect to the operating guidelines. Do those board members have any questions or comments with respect to the operating guidelines that you'd like to make now? Any comments? Okay. So let me just go through the appendices for the internal procedures and just kind of talk generally where I think we are. At the April 8th, 2022 board meeting, it was decided that board members Emily Gunston, Katya Semyonova, Alana Suttenberg, and the OGC team, which serves as our staff director, would meet in committee to review the operating guidelines. The committee has made progress on the guidelines and is ready to present the guidelines to the full board for consideration. Our staff director is finalizing edits and will circulate the guidelines to the full board next week on May 9th for the board's consideration. This means that we should plan now to meet sometime in June. I'm going to recommend June 10th. So if you want to take a look at your calendars for June 10th, we'll decide that at the end of the meeting. But it would be at that point that the edits will come out to you on May 9th, and you'll have, I'm going to ask that you return any comments in writing by June 3rd, so that we get the written feedback a week ahead of a board meeting, and we can actually have substantive conversation on that feedback on the June 10th meeting. What I'd really want to emphasize right now is it's very important. All of us were selected to the Clemency Board to represent certain groups and certain perspectives, and I think those perspectives are especially important when we talk about the appendices and the guidelines about how we're going to operate and our decision-making process. So I really urge that every member please submit written feedback on these guidelines by June 3rd. I think it's a tremendous responsibility that we have as board members, and it's an important one. So really would appreciate that kind of active response from the board. Are there any questions from board members on where we are with the guidelines? And the public is also free to put questions in the chat if you wish, or we'll be able to accept those now. Okay, I'm not seeing any at this point.
I don't have a question. I have a comment. And Christina, I don't know if you were going to talk a little bit about the guidelines. Were you going to give any more introduction about the guidelines?
I was not, but we're more than welcome to, partly because the board members haven't had an opportunity to view what the update with respect to the appendices are, but we can provide an update as of yet.
Just wanted to flag for board members as you review this, that one of the portions that the committee looked at and really thought would be valuable to have everyone's input on was the criteria for on which the board would recommend that a recommendation be issued to the president, for the president to then provide clemency. So that the substantive question of what the board members should be looking at, we should look at really closely as a group to decide what are the factors, or what do we, how much we want even factors to be a part of this, and how much it should be a discretionary decision that is, may refer to factors, but that would be a really important thing for board members to look at when you see the guidelines. And the guidelines will be lengthy, and this will be one small part within the guidelines.
So you're referring to Appendix B, I think, where it's factors for evaluating applications. Am I right?
Yes. I'm seeing Christina nod. I don't have the,
Okay.
I don't have the numbers memorized, but that portion of the guidelines that refers to that guides the board in deciding what to do.
Sure. So I can just kind of go through those real quick. There's just a short list of 7 that I see in the first part of this, at least, which are applicant's prior criminal and civil record. Applicant has demonstrated he or she is rehabilitated and no longer a present danger to the community. Applicant has demonstrated remorse. Applicant has described how a pardon or commutation would help the applicant achieve his or her goals and contribute to the community. Applicant has a terminal illness as defined for clemency board purposes. Applicant is elderly for clemency board purposes. Was the applicant's relevant offense of conviction decriminalized, or the sentencing scheme for offense for which he or she was convicted changed to provide for a less severe penalty?
Right, but I think all of those are sort of up for discussion. So that's the draft. It's based on, I don't know what that's based on, Christina.
So that was the initial draft. That was the draft that was circulated before we met in committee. So I think based on our meeting on committee, that list has expanded a bit more, and it was primarily based on compassionate release factors, IRA. And so it was a culmination of all of those things, but it doesn't mean that the board can't look at other things. The guidelines specifically say that we don't weigh a particular factor more than any other, that it's a holistic consideration. And Katya was drawing attention to board members in their review of Appendix B, partly because the decision needs to be made about how board members would utilize that factor worksheet, and how would you present your recommendations? Do you want to present it in narrative form or a checkbox or so forth? So those are things that are open for discussion and consideration when we circulate May 9th.
Thanks. I just wanted us to really focus in on that, because that's going to be the crux of the work.
Okay. And will the committee have recommendations about how you think that we should proceed on those? Or is that really truly the board's determination as a full board?
I wonder whether the individual, I imagine, and I don't know, I didn't see, I don't know, Alana, Emily, what you think, but I imagine that we would have separate opinions that may coincide about how they should be considered, but I don't know that the committee is going to have consensus on it. We haven't tried to reach consensus beyond adding some considerations.
I think that's right, Ilana. And I think that we're just, we've been kind of talking about the various options. We haven't like put it up for a committee vote or anything, but just all talking through the issues and kind of presenting the issues is where we're at now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think of how a conversation would go, at the next board meeting. If there could be some shaping of that conversation ahead of the board meeting so that, number one, you alerting us to this right now, Katya, I think is extremely important. But number two, there was a way to shape that conversation, sort of looking at alternatives and trying to figure out what are the options here for how this could go. I mean, this is some of the hard work of the group of this board, though, and the responsibility of board members is to start to think about how will you think through a case, and how would you want to use these guidelines, to further your consideration, right? So you're really asking us to start to do the hard work of what does this actually mean for a person and for our responsibilities. Okay. Are there any questions from other board members or other statements people want to make? I do think this represents us moving to a new phase. We're out of this administrative phase and now into the critical thinking about, particular individuals who will come through this process. So I think it's an important thing for folks to really pay attention to at this point.
The only other thought is that it would be helpful to have public comment at that point as well, and to allow enough time for public comment.
So
There's always time for but just to allot truly enough time for public comment, because that is going to be the more important part. There's some technical aspects to the guidelines that I think that we can probably work out, like confidentiality, those kinds of issues that also may be a little bit thorny, but that just maybe the public wants also to weigh in on that as well. I'm not sure. I guess that there is a public interest in the openness versus not openness. So there are a lot of things actually for public comment here as well.
okay. Are you suggesting maybe we should have a longer planned meeting next time so that we can hear public comment and fully engage them? And I suspect you're also asking when will they get a document that outlines what we're talking about here so that they can start to really do a deep dive themselves.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. I know we have Professor Moyd here. If Professor Moyd wanted to speak to the kind of the need, what the anticipated need is for the public to comment, or timelines.
Good morning. So I do think that it would be important that we have an opportunity to get the draft in advance. And then any comments from the public can be more focused during the discussion.
Okay. I'm going to turn to our staff director and ask what's a reasonable point in time when we could publish the guidelines draft.
So I certainly, when I send out the draft to the board, we can certainly send it out to Professor Moyd as well for consideration. With the caveat that it is a draft, that it is not a final decision from the board, and still working, still in a working progress within the Clemency Board's decision making about how the guidelines would go.
Right. Certainly. So we're talking May 9th.
So I think that's fine if the meeting is going to be in June, you said, right?
June 10th.
In addition to sending the information to myself and Professor Ross, it might be worth it to send to other members of the public who have attended meetings in the past. So even though folks are not here today, they might be interested in commenting on particularly the section that talks about decision making.
Yes, absolutely. You're reading my mind. It's the next thing I really want to talk about with the board is our outreach strategy. And I think presenting this, asking board members to take accountability for doing outreach to specific groups and doing that between now and the next meeting, this could be a reason to do that outreach and an opportunity for board members to start to inform themselves about perspectives in the community as well. Perfect.
I should also let you all know that I am transitioning from Howard Law School, and will be transitioning to American Washington College of Law. This is an issue that I am personally interested in, and so I will continue to attend the meetings and contribute where I can. And I do ask Ms. Sacco that you keep me on the panelist notification list.
Will do,
Thank you.
Councilman Wade.
Thank you, and congratulations on that, and all
Thank
the
you.
best with the transition. I know transitions are scary and hopeful, so
Thank you.
good luck with that. Okay, are there any other comments or questions, board members or from the public?
This is Ilana. This doesn't directly go to the operating guidelines, but I was just wondering if anyone's aware of any updates on the vacant seat for the victims' rights expertise, because I do feel like, I know I've brought this up before, kind of what is the role of victims going to be in this process? And it's something that we've, kind of continued to flag and haven't fully addressed. And I was wondering if there was any progress on that vacancy, which could be an informative perspective.
Well, I can tell you that I have not been notified of any progress on it at this point. First of all, I think one of the key issues is going to be identifying candidates for that job for the mayor's office of talent to be able to vet and to move forward. And so I just urge anybody who's a member of the board and the public who has in mind someone who has victims' rights experience in particular. You can let me know about that. You can let Moda know about that. We can start to try to generate some of those folks going forward. But I've heard nothing official on that at this point. I also know there's an outstanding request of the board to Councilmember Allen about a new seat for returning citizens, and there was some possibility around that. But the last I was updated on that was at our last meeting. I don't know if there's any change in that Antonio or Sonia would know or want to share today.
No change because we kind of just been consumed with budget. We sort of considered doing it through the Budget Support Act, but realized that it's not a possible avenue. So we have a couple of legislative vehicles that are moving through committee this fall, so we'll look to include it in there. So just need to find a vehicle.
Okay. So you think that happens this fall?
Yeah, we can get that done this fall.
Okay. Ilana, I'm not sure. Did we answer your question? Not satisfactorily, I'm certain.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. I do think that it's important to move that vacancy along. I think that that's a really important perspective on the board. So I know that it's beyond this board's control to appoint that, but I just do think that's an important thing to fill.
Yes. Exactly. Again, it's, the board, our credibility lies in our ability to sort of like represent the full range of the community. And to me, that's an important next step in addition to our actual work of looking at applications, reviewing them carefully, and making determinations about producing a letter. Any other comments at this point about the operating guidelines or anything related to that? Okay. So new business, I wanted to do a brief update on the ROI process. The staff director is working with the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, the General Counsel's Office of the DC Superior Court, and the General Counsel's Office of the Metropolitan Police Department to finalize the ROI process for the Clemency Board's application and the possibility of getting the Clemency Board access to Justice, which is their IT program. The staff director met with parties on April 27th, and additional consideration was necessary. So parties are reconvening on May 11th, 2022. And at that reconvening, we hope that there will be further action on this request. Any questions from the board? Staff director is here and is available to answer questions from the board or from the public on this. Any questions? Okay. Again, I just reminded this is an important part of us getting, current data and real-time data as possible for determination. So really appreciate all the efforts that are being made on this. Okay, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to add a new item to the agenda. I'd like to make a motion to add the discussion of Clemency Board outreach to the agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. I'll now turn it over to our staff director, Christina Sacco, to present a possible outreach strategy, and she'll also take any questions from the board or members of the public. Christina?
Good morning, everyone. So we have done a lot of work on the Clemency Board, and you all should be very proud of it. And we're at a point where we can actually start educating the public and reaching out to groups that we believe may be groups of interest that we've spoken to before, or new groups that we think would be potential stakeholders in the clemency process. And the goal is essentially to identify those groups and have various board members assigned to these groups to educate the groups on the Clemency Board, its application process, and see how we can utilize the resources within these groups to get the word out to our target population. And so, last week we finalized I don't know if you recall, our pamphlets that we could utilize as an outreach tool. And that pamphlet has been finalized. It's actually being translated into Spanish as well. So if there's any recommendations of other languages it should be translated to, please send them our way. Our point is just to create a bit of accessibility as well with our outreach. But I have a list of potential stakeholders or groups that various board members can target. And I was going to share my screen and just wanted to open up and see which board members are willing to take which group, and then possibly try to do some outreach. I'm happy to provide you all the resources. It's the pamphlet, the regulation, so you're able to fully discuss the Clemency Board process and the application, and answer any questions that these groups may have for you. So I just wanted to open up there and share my screen. So let me know if you're able to see my screen. Should I zoom in more? Can everybody see that a little bit bigger?
I've got really old eyes, so it looks good to me.
Okay. And so the list that we have are BOP facilities and wardens. So we have a list of BOP facilities where we think we'd be able to reach individuals that could benefit from DC Clemency Board's work. And we're going to work with the Mayor's Office of Returning Citizens Affairs, the Director is Carey, to kind of get that outreach going. Quite recently, we had 2 inmates actually email our email, which is clemency@dc.gov, and they asked to add our email to their 4Links account, which we accepted. So that's great that we know that the word is getting out. And I think this would be a good way to kind of like have a conversation with BOP to get the clemency email added into everyone's emails. So they're able to email us without having that additional step where they have to actually do it. So from my understanding about 4Links, the inmates have to pay for it, but it's free for those outside with the BOP facilities. So I think, knowing all of this information may be helpful. So I assigned staff director to kind of like the OGC team to work on this particular area of outreach within the BOP facilities. But I've also identified the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. I know that we are working with them to get access to justice, but because of all the law enforcement agencies that sit on this council, I thought it would be a great place for a board member to go and educate all these law enforcement agencies and offices about the Clemency Board, what it does and its process. Another interested party, which from our public comments was the Council for Corporate Excellence, partly because of their interest in how they were involved with drafting the regulations and submitting comments. Thought it'd be a great place to start. We've worked with CSOSA, and obviously they're one of our partners to receive documents from. But I understand that Mr. Hendrick's team is actually the team that goes into BOP facilities, and so it might be a good place to have a conversation, educate them about the Clemency Board, and give them pamphlets as well. The Corrections Information Council, also another great way, because I know that they also go into BOP facilities. And then lastly, these are some of the advocacy groups that we met with before that have participated on calls, have submitted comments, or we have reached out to them for about their interest in serving as a community engagement partner. And that was, the National Ranchery Network, and I believe this came from Lisa Carter, so thank you, Lisa. Courtney Stewart's been a great contributor to our meetings. The DC or Entry Task Force with Sawyer, that's also a connection from Lisa Carter, so thank you on that. Voices for a Second Chance, Patrick, I believe that was a connection that he brought on, and they have been extremely helpful, actually, who connected us to the CJCC and the Network for Victim Recovery DC. And that was from Ilana, so we want to thank you. I think, yes, involving victims into the process would be great. And that is my extensive list. I don't know if board members or the public have additional groups they would like to add. So I'm open to taking those recommendations, but I also wanted to see which board members would like to take which organization and begin the outreach, and happy to provide those resources.
One thing is that I know that CIC has a like some kind of communication, maybe through core links for a lot of incarcerated people. Like when compassionate release was passed, they sent some sort of update to individuals. I don't know if there's been outreach with them yet, but I think that they have, maybe they do a newsletter also that is within, that goes to the BOP. I think that they may have more, they certainly have more interest than the wardens do, but also just more connection to DC folks who are incarcerated. And I think it's a matter of having them sort of update or do their, like, whatever the ways that they do like a news blast to people, but I think it would be really helpful for them to start doing that.
Great.
That's great. Thanks, Kathy.
One thing is the CJA bar, the attorneys who represent people under the Criminal Justice Act, and PBS can take care of informing them about this. And I can do that maybe in writing, or we could try to add it as some other training.
Sure. It's called sorry, I didn't catch that. The CJI bar?
CJA, Criminal Justice Act is what it is. It's the non-public defender service. Most people who are not represented by the public defender service are represented by an attorney appointed under this system, where it's court-appointed counsel, and they're called CJA lawyers, and there's a panel of them, and they represent people in Superior Court.
By chance, do you have a point of contact for that, Katya?
It's Betty Ballister.
Okay.
Is I think she's also the Superior Court Trial Lawyers Association president. Let me just look that up and I'll put it in the chat for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there other organizations that folks thought we should consider adding at this point?
This is Felisa. Friends and Family of Incarcerated Persons. I know they have a website on Facebook. I have to look it up. Yes. I'm blanking on the person's name now. I know it's, I think it's Stuart Anderson, I think is the head of it. I ran into him in the neighborhood. So yes, he said like we would be welcome to inform that the Clemency Board would be welcome to inform his group about our policies and the Clemency Board and what our status is and things like that and what we do. So, yes, friends and families of incarcerated people.
Thank you, Felisa. Do you, by chance, do you also have a contact for Stuart Anderson?
I have to go look it up. Oh, yeah, I think he did. Well, I can go on his Facebook because I know he gave me his Facebook. He told me to go look on the Facebook because they have a group site on the Facebook. So I have to go look that up. Yes, yeah.
Okay,
That's
that's great.
Katya, by chance, would you want to take doing outreach to the CJA bar and then Felisa to friends, families, and of incarcerated persons? Since you kind of already have a relationship with them.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I put the links for the Superior Court Trial Lawyers Association. I don't think there's like a central point of contact for the CJA bar beyond the Superior Court Trial Lawyers Association, but the CJA lawyers have to do various trainings, and so they have like listservs and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so can we go back up just so folks can see what are their options? I'd really like every board member to take at least one, two if you could, responsibility for the outreach to one or two groups. I know that a number of our board members are also representatives to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, or you have folks in your organization who is doing it. So I was thinking maybe that would be something that I would do the outreach to and go and try to get a presentation to CJCC, their next, I assume it meets monthly.
Patrick, OHA is on the CJCC, and I'm happy to help however you'd like.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Do you happen to know when their next meeting is, the monthly meeting?
I'll look at my calendar and find out, and you can I'll update you once I have it.
Great, thanks.
It's every third Wednesday at 8:30 in the morning. The one was moved to the afternoon recently, but they should be then.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Patrick, I have that the next one is on May 18th.
Okay. I happen to be out of town on May 18th, but
Okay, let me get you the next one.
yeah,
That one is June 15th.
okay. And I'll make a request to join, or maybe you can help me do that.
Happy to.
Great, plan on that then. Okay, Council for Court Excellence.
Patrick, Sonia, and I can take CCE. We have a relationship with them, so happy to reach out to them.
Fantastic, thanks, Antonio. CISOSA. Again, I know probably a number of you are already intimately involved with CISOSA on different activities. I can do this for like an initial kind of presentation. Happy to do that.
Pat, I can do CISOSA and CIC.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Reverend. Okay. National Reentry Network for Returning Citizens.
Oops. I guess I can do that one.
Thank you. Lisa.
Yep, that's me, Felisa.
Thank you. DC Reentry Task Force.
I can try to do that one too, Pat.
Thank you, Reverend. Voices for a Second Chance. Paula Thompson, Nancy Ware.
I'm happy to take that one for the staff directors.
Well, remember, there's someone who's not here today, and the problem with not being at a board meeting is
Oh,
getting assigned. So, is there anybody else who's interested? I really, and I just want to say, I appreciate your willingness to do it. I do think it's really important that board members get out there. Any takers? Okay, I'll do this one then. And then the last one.
Christine will be emailing this out, right?
Yeah,
This
so
list-
we'll talk.
okay.
We'll talk a little bit about what you're going to get. There's a whole, it's the pamphlet. There's kind of a script I did, 2 Voices for a Second Chance, that I think we probably update and give you a small PowerPoint presentation if you wanted that. Depending on what's the setting you're going to, or the crowd that you're going to, I think we can probably help you with presentation materials, script basically, and any other information you want, as well as your assignment and what we're asking you to do. Okay. And then Network for Victim Recovery.
So this is Ilana. I don't know, if I'll be involved in any presentations. I'm happy to facilitate a connection of them if it would be useful, but, I think our role is a little bit more limited. But I can facilitate a connection, certainly, for anybody who wants it.
Sure. Let's see if Andy would agree to this, Ilana, and then maybe you can help him with that.
Sure, sounds great.
And if not, I'm happy to be a backup for Andy. Okay. That's everyone. Great. Fantastic.
I put in the chat Free Minds. I think we should talk with them too, and I'm happy to do that. I don't think it got picked up.
sorry, when I'm sharing, I can't see the chat. Could you
It's
tell
really
me?
fine. I too have a hard time seeing it all.
3 Minds, you said?
Yep, Free Minds Book Club and Writing Workshop.
Oh.
Could you tell us a little more about them?
Yeah, so they have been around for a really long time, at least 15 years. They are an organization that works inside of the DC jail, CTF, YSC, and New Beginnings, working with kids, young adults, and adults on literacy, literature, poetry as a kind of a way to, I guess, sort of access emotions, embrace change, sort of connect with them, with each other, with the community. I can put a link in the chat. They also work really closely. So individuals who have come home are mentors for Free Minds, and they work closely with the individuals who've been released under IRA, and have various groups. They've testified on a lot of matters at the council. Let me put a description. Let me just put their website in the chat so I'm not kind of, being inaccurate.
Sure.
This
Sounds
is
like a
Felice.
great
I concur with what Katarina is saying. Yeah, I know that group has been around for a long time and very active around. I guess the right word would be I guess formerly incarcerated people, or incarcerated people, like they're in the jails and they work outside the jail. So
they're also in the BOP. I think they go to the BOP much more rarely, but they maintain lists of everybody who has been in the book club through DOC, and maintain contact in the BOP and send them books and keep communicating. And so they have really kind of deep connections.
That's awesome. That's so unique. Great one to reach out to. Do you know who the point of contact for that may be?
Tara Liebert,
Tara.
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 TT, sorry, T.
Oh.
Tara. Here, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Hi, this is Professor Moyd. I did include in the chat 2 organizations that are led by formerly incarcerated individuals. They are reentry organizations, and they have regular meetings with individuals once they've returned to the community. One is The Wire, Women Involved in Reentry Efforts, that's led by LaShania Thompson L. And her group focuses on, issues that relate to women as they are readjusting to the community. And the other is the National Association for the Advancement of Returning Citizens, and that's led by Eric Weaver. And I can look up contact information for each of those.
Professor Moy, could you please repeat the last one? I didn't catch that one.
The National Association for the Advancement of Returning Citizens, and the director is Eric Weaver.
And the point of contact for The Wire.
LaShania, last name is Thompson -L.
Hyphen
ELL.
OEL.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure I spelled LaShania right, but
You did.
okay. All right.
Okay, so these are 2 new organizations. Board members who'd be willing to do some outreach to them?
I'm happy to reach out to LaShania.
Okay. And
Katya, right? Sorry.
Yep. Yes.
and maybe Andy could do this one as well.
Right.
Okay. Any other organizations we want to add at this point, or? Okay. So again, what I'm asking is that each board member make contact with these groups. It may be that you're doing a presentation to them between now and June 3rd, but that you would at least make contact and have a plan for that outreach. Would really like to get going on that. It would be also a great opportunity for you to start to raise, hey, here's where we are with the guidelines. And this is what's in front of us. What do you think as a member of the community? What do you think we should be importantly added to this or considered more strongly or other? So it would be by June 3rd that folks would do that. Okay. Is there any other questions or comments on this part of the agenda? That was
I
great.
just have a question with respect to what board members would need from me with respect to information and resources to conduct this outreach. Do you want me to send you the pamphlet, the regulations, which are on our website, but I'm happy to send you a PDF so you have it in your email. Anything else, just with respect to information?
Do folks think that they would ever meet with groups in person and want to show a brief slide presentation that would sort of outline the big things? Here's our purpose, here's our website, here's how you contact us. The basic outlines that are in the pamphlet, we could very easily turn into a quick PowerPoint. would folks be interested in that? And do you think that would be useful in your outreach? I see some shaking heads.
Well, I'll take everything that you have.
Okay.
I'll use one thing or another,
Right. Sure.
so I have options.
Right. So you'd end up getting the pamphlets in hard copy. You'd have the PowerPoint, which is essentially much of the same information as the pamphlet in a slideshow. So if you want to, use that electronically,
Mhm.
and it would contain all the important information that's in the pamphlet. We can even give you an electronic copy of the pamphlet. So if they wanted to distribute it themselves, they were able to.
Okay, I'll take them all because I may do it either way. So that'll give me options.
Right. Yeah. I'd like to make it easy for folks if we can. I appreciate you doing it.
Okay.
Patrick, this is Emily. I need to jump to another meeting, but I wanted to make sure it's not going to mess up the quorum if I do that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For voting purposes, I think 5 is good, right, Ilana? Am I right on that, Christina?
Yes.
Yeah, June 10th. Can you do it? That's the only question.
Yes.
Okay, great. Good.
Thank you all so much. I'm sorry that I need to leave.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to back on the agenda. The next item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any other comments from the public, Dr. Moyd? Nope, I don't see her actually now.
Yes, Professor Moyen is not on anymore.
Okay.
So no public comments.
Okay, great. So let me just review the bidding here. One is I'm proposing our next meeting be June 10th at 10 a.m. Is that acceptable for the board? People available June 10th, 10 a.m. If you're not, if you say it out loud. Yeah.
That's good for Ilana.
Okay. I see 2. That's Katya, Ilana. 3 is Emily. Reverend Whitaker, Antonio. It's good for Reverend Whitaker. Antonio. Works. And
Good, good for me, Felisa.
Okay, so next meeting, June 10th, 10 a.m.
Patrick, sorry to interrupt. I just want to go back to our decision to move the board meetings to 1 p.m. on Fridays, I recall. Is that still going to be our standing? I know we moved it to 10 a.m. for this meeting.
I'm very sorry.
No, that's okay. I didn't know if that's something we still want to continue to do. I think it was just with respect to conflicts for some board members.
Yeah, it seems that everybody's just agreed to the 10 a.m. time, and we know that meeting might be a 2-hour meeting because we want extensive public comment.
Right.
So
10 a.m. standing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's leave it there for now, and we can revisit it next time if that continues to be a conflict. I forget who raised that as a standing conflict.
I'm not entirely sure. I need to go back and see who that was, but yeah.
For a while, Katya and I had a different Friday afternoon meeting, but that one's not meeting again for a while.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So again, June 10th, 10 a.m. We're asking for written feedback on the guidelines from all board members. That would be received to Christina by June 3rd, so the week before. The guidelines themselves in draft form will be published on May 9th. So it'll give you from May 9th to June 3rd to make written comments. And I really urge that everyone make written comments. And then the outreach assignments, you have them. We'll send them to you following this meeting so that you're clear about who it is and give you as much contact information. Christina and the staff will start to create the PowerPoint for you to use if you wish. And then we'd ask that you make contact with those groups. Maybe it's not the meeting, but you'll at least have a scheduled meeting by June 3rd so that we can have a robust conversation. The real idea, one of the things I'd like everyone to do in that meeting with the outreach group is to provide them with the guidelines draft so that they can also weigh in and be aware that they are welcome to participate in our June 10th meeting if they have feedback for us. Okay. Okay. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move, Pat.
Second?
Second.
We're done. Apologize for a late start, everyone. Thanks so much. Really appreciate your input and your help today.